Every once in a while, I like to have a roundtable of thought leaders in mortgage, and I'm bringing it to you today on the heels of the second big announcement from Rocket Mortgage earlier on in the week. Of course, I'm talking about their massive acquisition. Joining me now, Brooke Lapides.
You got it.
Yes. Kristin Broadley, who worked at Rocket for 20 years, and Coby Hakalir. I've got a challenge today with all the names, but I think I pulled it off. VP at T360. I love these folks and what they bring to the table. And I'll start with you, Kristin. You worked at Rocket for 20 years, as recently as 2022. So what is your reaction to the flurry of activity? First, Redfin. What did you think then? And then now, Mr. Cooper. Where are they going with this?
So in my history with them, which has been a long one, when I started way back in 2002, there were 800 folks. When I left in 22, there were 21,000. So there was a growth trajectory there while I was at Rocket. Is that when the market starts to slow down, they go into growth mode. They go into build mode. They go into streamline mode. And so it's not surprising to me, Redfin and Mr. Cooper. I mean, it's extraordinary acquisitions, but they're also in a much different position than they were when they did this back at the end of the last credit crisis. So I think it's interesting. I think it is data focused, data centric. I think who owns the data, wins the day. And they have a lot of access to a lot of folks that they didn't previously. And so I think it's a great strategy. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do because, as big of a bombshell as it is, there is a lot of infrastructure that has to be kind of combined. And so they're all big orgs. It's going to be very interesting.
And Brooke, you brought this up. You brought this to my attention in one of my own threads on LinkedIn. So I know you're nervous as shit. You've never done this before. So just take a deep breath. You told me before we went on here, you've never done one of these lives. And I mean, come on, you're a co-author now. I mean, you've got a big announcement. You had a book launch today. So we'll get into that. We'll give the book a plug. My good friend Kyle Draper in the Rethink series kicks it into another gear. But you pointed out that Flagstar was acquired by Mr. Cooper. And so you've got this quartet of different cultures all being fused together. And It was a great point that you brought up. What are your thoughts on that and how that all works? And I know, Coby, you'll have some too.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I'm interested to see how it all comes together. I actually spent time at Rocket as well. That's where I got my start in the industry, not for quite as long as Kristin. We did overlap for a time though. Still have friends there, and I have a lot of friends who have now left there and are at other companies, and actually quite a few at Mr. Cooper. So I reached out to a few of them this morning to see what they were thinking, what they were feeling, and every single one of them had a very positive reaction. They were excited about the news. They were, some of them, like I said, had already been at Rocket, and they were actually excited to go back and be part of the Rocket family again. They're looking to own every part of the process of bringing people home and all the data that goes along with it. I saw somebody posted a meme on LinkedIn today about how Rocket had acquired a bunch of moving truck companies to actually help people move into their homes as, an April Fool's post. And, it's not that far off.
Yeah, they do, Coby, have a lot of verticals now. Somebody told me that Rocket owns the Fathead brand, the pictures of the quarterbacks on my kids' walls. I mean, they've got Truebill, right? Is that the name of it? Truebill. They've got the credit card
Rocket
information.
Money.
Rocket Money. Was it Truebill previously? Is that the company they
Yes,
purchased?
It was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, and there's probably 10 or 15 or 20 or who knows how many more companies they have. Coby, can they pull this off?
Yeah, I think they can. I think they're showing they can. And by the way, if you want to really own the entire customer funnel, you got to start in the kid's bedroom, right? So that's just shows what they're after. But if you think about what they've done, right? So, Kristin mentioned 2009, 2012, what they were doing then is they were capitalizing while others retrenched. Same thing as what they're up to right now. The difference is back then it was driven by distressed assets, regulatory survival. There was a whole different ballgame going on then. And today it's driven by margin compression, competitive pressures, and scaling operations and diversifying of revenue. So different different positioning in the market right now, where it actually positions, back then it was all about staying alive and trying to figure out what the mortgage landscape was going to look like. Now it's about reshaping the mortgage landscape entirely and putting pressure on the rest of the industry to follow suit. So I think they can pull it off. I think they're showing you they will. And I think their next move is going to be super interesting, because as a lot of people have been talking about, what they really need, what they're really missing right now are boots on the ground. They've got to go after boots on the ground. And I think that their next acquisition, the next part of their shopping spree is going to be that.
Kristin, what do you think? Do you recall inside those walls conversations about going into retail?
So, going into the wholesale market, I remember, you talk about kind of retrenching, and you talk about innovation, you talk about growth as that being current mindset. I will tell you that existed coming out of the credit crisis. It wasn't just, survive. You have an opportunity to grow market share in a different way when you're in a contracting market, right? Everyone's trying to grow market share. It's great when things are busy, when you can't get enough consumers, when you have a lot of purchasers, when everybody is reaping rewards like 2021, 2022. Your best opportunity to grow market share is to grow when others are contracting, when you have a lot of M&A activity, when you have a lot of folks that are leaving the market. So if you want to grow that market activity now, and then you can capitalize on it when we go through that growth cycle. So that was a mindset back then when it came to automating, when it came to creating frictionless experiences. Those are conversations that we were having back then. So none of that was new for them, for Rocket, and certainly not for, the new executive team that they have, which is, that's their focus, and that's what they're looking to build. But if you think about it, if they were working on those frictionless experiences way back when, at the end of the last credit crisis, they're that much further ahead when it comes to some of those builds. And so, folks today need to think about that. Are you going to try and gain margin in a down market? Because this is the best time. And then what are you going to do in order to position yourself to be really, really, really efficient when we come out of this, contracted market?
Brooke, you wrote a book on financial literacy, didn't you? For youngsters.
I did.
And, it makes me think about you in the context of, will they ever be able to get to a point where you don't have to be rooted in a community? I would think you'd be against that. And I don't want to make any assumptions that they feel like that's okay. I mean, I do think it's safe to say that has been their Achilles heel, though, that they've not been able to, that push button, get mortgage, missed. It was before its time, for starters. And to me, and Kristin, I see you're going to definitely have thoughts on this, so hold on to this. I'm going to go to Brooke first. But the idea that they could potentially go end to end and go tech over relationships, I can't imagine that's what they're thinking, that you don't have to be in communities. Brooke, I know you must feel strongly that it all starts in communities. So as you look at what they're doing and the position that they're taking, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think going back to what you said about how it was, push button, get mortgage was maybe a little bit ahead of its time. I think that's right, because at the time, millennials were just coming off of, the last crisis and seeing their parents lose their houses and seeing everything be such a mess. And it just seemed, it was a little scary, I think, for millennials. I think Gen Z is probably a little bit more ready for it now than we were then. But having said that, buying your first home, it's a big purchase. It can be scary. There's a lot of emotions that go into it. I think the community aspect is always going to be important, but I can't imagine that Rocket hasn't thought through that and doesn't have a plan.
What do you think it is, Coby? What's that plan?
I think that the issue, there's two sides here, right? I think there's always going to be a need for the local loan officer, for the boots on the ground. There's always going to be space for that. I don't think Rocket is going to have 80% market share or anything close to it, right? However, when you think back to the lenders that have been online, push button get mortgage was what, 2015, right? Somewhere around there.
Around that time, I think it was February 16 during the Super Bowl, I believe.
Okay. Well, there was a time from about 2005 through 2015, through the crisis, through trade, all of that, where the online lenders were trying to get market share and they just weren't ready to get it because the tech wasn't there and the customer base wasn't ready for it. Right now, we're at a point where 72% of customers say they want a single digital platform, right? 60% of home buyers are Gen Z and millennials. So we're in that era right now where the customer base is ready for it. Are they going to dominate? Is it going to be 80, 90%? No. But is there a chance to go from 7, 10% to 40%, 50%? I think absolutely, because I think the demographic is there. They're wanting it. Even though, I've heard the comment, it's not DoorDash. People only buy a house once every 10 years. Yes, but you've also heard me say on LinkedIn many times, the customer is savvy. They know what they're doing. They know what they want. And if you give them that ability to go through one platform all the way through and it works well, they're going to do it.
I don't know, brother. And I'm thinking right now about, you say they're savvy. They know what they want. Does that apply to Gen Z? Does that apply to a 24-year-old that has never walked down this road before? 26-year-old, 28-year-old? In other words, the fastest growing cohort of first-time home buyers? I don't know.
Think so. I think
Really?
so. I mean, I've got a daughter turning 11 in 2 weeks that, yesterday we were sitting in the car waiting for the bus to pick her up and hail was coming down. Within 5 seconds, she pulled up on her phone how hail is created and how the size is determined. The information is there. Kids know how to get it. She's only 11. When she's twice the age that she is now, the ability for her to research information is going to be exponentially larger than it is now. And I think that's the case with the younger generation. We assume they don't know. We assume they have a short attention span, but their ability to consume and research information is staggering.
Kristin, would you buy a home without walking through it? Are virtual tours and a great smooth loan process enough for you?
Absolutely not. And this is where I'm in agreement. The home buying process is a localized process, right? It's a community. It's shopping. It's schools. It's local realtors that are walking you around. It's talking to folks in the community. When it comes to your biggest investment, the one you call home for how many years? Some folks it's 3, some folks it's 30. It's a very personal investment. Now, when it comes to getting a mortgage, as folks like Brooke and others educate, children and teens, and they gain financial literacy sooner rather than later, they're going to be more comfortable in an online experience. But again, the home buying process really is boots on the ground. It's local. And so I think there is always going to be a market for the local, loan officer, certainly for the real estate agent, although that's a whole nother show. So it's a fragmented, very, very fragmented process. It's a very, very fragmented market. And so, to Coby's point, 35%, I think was when Wells Fargo was max prior to the crisis. There will always be market local.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Can you expound?
Yes, I can. I thought you were about to speak.
No, you guys are supposed to take over, man. I'm in the back seat here.
I agree with that. I think there's room for both. I think that there's room for the local loan officer, which is why I think Rocket is eventually going to acquire either one large national retail platform or several, and they're going to try it out in different markets. I think that's the next step for them. I think the reason they acquired Redfin is not Zillow. Redfin is actually agents on the ground that show properties. And I think they understand that. So to Kristin's point, I do think that even if you have most of the application process or buying process go through a digital platform, it's going to be there to augment the experience, right? We talk about technology replacing jobs. Technology doesn't necessarily replace jobs. It makes people who do their jobs better at doing them, right? And I think that's what we're going to see in the mortgage industry. I think that's what's going to happen with Rocket. You're going to have the Redfin agents taking them to see homes. You're going to have the retail Rocket loan officers working with them, and there's going to be boots on the ground there. But then the entire transaction is going to go through one seamless integrated workflow if they get it right, that I hope works for them. And then we haven't even started talking about what they have gained an advantage with the Mr. Cooper acquisition in terms of having the servicing. So, I mean, they've really set themselves up for major, major success here.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the servicing for sure, but that's on existing loans. So I'm not exactly convinced that tells us anything about what the move forward strategy looks like with new loans. Like they could potentially, one answer might be, well, let's lean on the wholesale community more. That's dangerous, isn't it? It's dangerous to put too many eggs in that basket, because then you give the brokers control potentially of your success or failure. And if they start to feel squeezed and revolt and move away from that channel, it could collapse. Is that far-fetched, Kristin?
I don't know if it's far-fetched. I know that, and there's probably a lot of different thoughts on this. Working with the broker community, which I did, right? We had Rocket Pro TPO. I think it's Rocket Pro. There was so much deference given to the broker when it came to leads, when it came to recapture, when it came to, what was happening in the local markets. They don't see them. It's not an adversarial view. It really truly is. It's in addition to, it's an advancement of their lead flow. So they are very, very focused on making sure brokers in the local communities are happy. I think there's a lot of acrimony that is inserted into the conversation that shouldn't be there. But, from a marketing perspective, it makes sense. You want to paint someone as the black sheep. You want to paint a company as not doing right by. I don't know that they want to squeeze them out as much as they want to partner with them. And that's kind of been their focus for a very, very long time. They are much better keeping brokers happy and having brokers provide that lead flow rather than try and squeeze them out. It's so much harder to build that organization than lever people that are already in market.
A couple thoughts on that. Sorry to cut you off, Kristin. My apologies.
Okay.
It's hard. There's like a little delay between me and you. But part of, I think, the narrative is just fear, right? You're on the outside looking in. You're wondering how this impacts your business. Oh my goodness, is the world coming to an end? Right? I mean, that's part of it. The other side, Brooke, is that if you get caught up in that model and the juice is that good, then you could then become completely dependent on Rocket feeding you leads, right? So you're no longer autonomous. You're institutionalized. Your businesses. What are your thoughts on that? And then I want you to pivot into the trigger conversation, because you thought that we should be scrutinizing with the acquisition, them servicing 1 out of every 6 customers, that we should take a close look at the provision inside the trigger legislation that might be punted up again to the floor.
Yeah, I will. I'll come back to that. And I actually wanted to talk about one thing that Coby had brought up, which was that he's thinking Rocket is probably there's gonna be some more M&A, and they're gonna maybe acquire some large, retail lender or several or something like that. And I think he's right. I think we're gonna see that. I also think that we're gonna be seeing more and more really large, not necessarily this large, but large M&A deals in the industry. Last year, mortgage M&A actually decreased, and globally M&A decreased as well, except for really large deals over $1 billion. A lot of the smaller consolidation had already happened over the past few years, 2021, 22, 23. So that kind of started to fall off. So I think we're going to see a lot more blockbuster deals like this from Rocket as well as from other lenders, which will be interesting to see what happens. So yeah, the trigger lead ban, I believe last I heard, and I haven't been completely keeping up on it, but I believe it stalled out in December, but I'm sure will be brought back up. Is that right? And I know that there is a carve out for servicers. So Rocket is going to be able to reach out to, like you said, 1 in 6 mortgages that they're servicing at that point, which is a huge advantage for them. And I'm not saying that I think that there shouldn't be the carve out. I'm kind of curious what everybody else thinks about it now that they're going to have so many loans in their portfolio.
Let me frame it to you this way, Coby. When I started saying, well, I don't like this provision, it's not cool that they're going to get the heads up before anybody else, I was told basically to sit down and shut up, because we need them. We need them to buy our servicing at higher premiums. And if they have a lot of runoff, then all of a sudden they're going to be willing to give us, IMB, less money for the MSRs. I mean, does that argument still hold true when you have a market share of 1 out of every 6 consumers, or should IMBs be concerned?
No, I don't think it still holds true with the 1 in 6 ratio. I think if you continue to see, look, we had 50 plus IMBs shut down or merged between 2022 and 2024. The top 5 lenders now account for over 40% of total mortgage originations in this country. So we're coming to a point where, you know, the FTC and the CFPB may start to look at some of these mergers and acquisitions and start to think, okay, we need to rethink what this looks like for the consumer, right? When there's a servicer carve out that, you know, that puts the trigger leads and allows puts the trigger leads kind of in a position where if you're a servicer, you get to contact your own customers. I don't think that was meant to cut off, you know, about a fifth of the market. Right. So to level the playing field, I don't think we should take that out. I think we need better legislation with the trigger leads. We need to eliminate that practice entirely, in my opinion. You know, and I think that, you know, if you're talking about what's fair to the IMBs and you know, and how that affects the MSRs, you know, I mean, yeah, you've got, you know, what is it, 2.1 trillion now that they're servicing, and that number is going to continue to expand. You know, and it's going to put more pressure on the MSRs. And that's going to make IMBs less profitable, right? Because if your MSR values are going up at a time when interest rates are still high, and you don't have that profitability, and all you're stuck with is just high interest rates to try to sell your borrowers, and that other profit line is not there, you know, that's even more margin pressure, right? And so I think that you know, this impacts the entire industry in a lot of different ways, and the legislation that we've put in place seems like it's almost obsolete at this point.
Yeah. Kristin, you're not at Rocket anymore. You're at Accelerated Advisors. What are you doing over there?
So Accelerated Advisors is a company that I founded because I, you know, soup to nuts, origination through servicing, know the process. I ran risk, credit risk, servicing risk, all the things, ERM at Rocket. I find unicorns in the market. So I find small vendors, small startups, SaaS companies that I know the industry needs, that maybe can't afford to go to an annual and, you know, have a conference table. And so I find those folks, I help expand their network, and I help them grow. And so that's what I've been doing.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I love that. Brooke, you're an author now again. So is this the second time?
Yes.
You have a copy of the book? Where's the book? Hold it up. Don't tell me you don't have a copy.
I don't have one yet. I wish I did. I would show you, but I did post a picture of the cover on LinkedIn. Had a children's book come out last year about financial literacy. This one is on the same topic, but this one's geared towards teens. And it was written with 14 women in not just in the mortgage industry, but in all types of financial services. You know, it was a labor of love, and we had a great time working on it. We're super excited that it's out. April is Financial Literacy Month, so the timing is perfect.
Name of the book?
Rethink Everything You Know About Financial Literacy for Teens.
That's so amazing. Hey, and Coby, I mean, look, when I read your LinkedIn description here, you're like, you wear a lot of different hats, man.
I do.
I mean, mortgage banking and ancillary services, industry writer, podcaster, and advocate. I mean, I'm only scratching the surface here. Strategic growth architect. That's
it's
good.
It's a lot of
brand
words.
awareness, go-to-market strategies. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Take that and put it on in the lens of an IMB right now. If you're a player that's you know, and I'll give this to all three of you. I don't want to speak again until all three of you answer this question. If you're a small IMB, 400 million, let's say 400 million to 800 million, and you're at this moment in time and you're advising that entity, what is it you're saying, Coby?
You know, I'm advising them of a few things. I'm advising them to get into servicing, you know, whether it's a contract to try to get into, you know, with a sub-servicer, but try to take advantage of some of that income. This servicing moat that's being built right now. I think IMBs need to figure out a way to get into that, to kind of alleviate some of the pressures so that they can navigate through the next couple of years, because we don't know when rates are coming down. I think they need to double down on their integration into the communities, get those loan officers out there. We talked about that segment of the market. I want to see those loan officers that I've got in the communities developing relationships with realtors, and I want to double down on my strategy to be a part of the community from a corporate level. I want to make sure my tech stack is efficient and I'm providing the best customer experience from a technology standpoint. And I want to make sure that I'm recruiting loan officers that fit my brand, not just, you know, give them the biggest handout with a clawback, but find people who are actually good cultural fits for my organization. Those are the simple things you can do without making, an overnight, unbelievable change. Things that you can implement that can keep you sustainable and can actually lead to some growth down the road.
Coby, I don't know that any of those things are simple, but they're imperative, right? So from an advisory
simple
perspective,
simple in their
my
concept.
perspective, yes, simple in their concept, tough in execution. So I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Coby talked about. I think servicing is it's an imperative. I know that there were folks that got caught flat-footed in this most recent contraction that are really leaning in and looking into develop servicing, either service and retained or subserviced. But when I talk to lenders, kind of within those confines, this really is the opportunity to create a lot of efficiency in process, right? You certainly want to grow the top of the funnel, but you need to focus on efficiency and process. There are so many vendors out there. There's so much tech out there right now that can take you from where you are, like analyze your tech stack and take you to where you need to be. You don't need to be a Rocket or a UWM or a Rate with 1,500 folks, technology folks helping you develop. There are so many folks within the market that have the opportunity to help you get to that level of frictionless experience for consumers that you don't have to wait. You just have to lean into it. And so that's where I would say folks need to focus. Servicing, and certainly in creating, developing, innovating, executing, and adopting the programs and processes so that when rates do come down, you grow.
Yeah, I agree with everything my smart friends have said. Looks like we lost Greg, so I'm going to assume we're still live and recording and go with it. I'm going to go a little bit more granular than what you both said, and from an LO level, really just focus on relationship building. The things that we always talk about for LOs: focus on relationship building, focus on education, focus on home buyer education, first time home buyers, using a company like FinLocker to really help people as they go through the process. Donna, are we still on?
Yes, we're still live.
Okay.
We are missing Greg though, for sure.
Okay. Really just being a part of the community and working on building those relationships. You can still beat a company like Rocket. Thanks, Chris, for letting us know we're still on.
All right. So we are going to end the show now because we are at time. And we are missing Greg. So I just want to thank everyone for joining. You guys have been great guests. And I don't know if anyone has any last thoughts or anything like that they want to share before we conclude today's show.
I just have one or maybe two. One, I want to congratulate. Just want to congratulate Brooke on her book.
Thank you.
Brooke and I met. We've become friends. I support her, and she's extraordinary. And I love that she does this. Her true north with helping kids, teens, families, and financial literacy is just next level. Coby, certainly a pleasure to meet you. And just the last thought, I know I'm coming across as like a Rocket advocate. After 20 years, I am. But being in the market, I'm an advocate for the industry. I'm an advocate for consumers and homeowners and access to home ownership and sustainability. And we need our entire ecosystem and our industry in order to get there. If the Rocket acquisitions do anything, just hopefully they light a fire and they get you moving so we can better serve our consumers.
Yeah, I second that. Brooke, congratulations on the book. As I said in the pre-show, I'm definitely buying a copy for my daughter. We're going to get her, financially literate. Kristin, was great to meet you. And I second what you said. I think what these moves mean, what we're seeing, we're not only seeing the energy in the industry, which is tremendous, but we're also seeing moves that put positive pressure on the rest of the industry to get better, to up their game. And so I think when you see people investing in mortgage and doubling down on their business strategy, that's good for all of us. That's good for everybody in the business. There's plenty of business to go around. And I think that for those folks that use it as an impetus to get stronger and better at what they do, well, that's the way it should be taken. And I'm excited for the future and what it's going to bring.
All right, Brooke, you got to take this home.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I was very nervous and I'm extremely sweaty, but I think it went well. So thank you.
You
did
great.
Thank you. Thank you for the congratulations on the book. Everybody, please look for it. Just, find my posts on LinkedIn, or any of the other 13 contributors are posting about it as well. So I'm sure it'll flood your feeds. And absolutely agree with what Coby just said. There is still plenty of business to go around. I don't think anybody needs to be reacting with fear. But hopefully, like Kristin said, it does light a fire and gets people moving in the right direction.
These are exciting times. There's always, Kristin, you touched on this, and I know that I'm farther away now than I was before. Some people probably like that you can't see me that up close. We've had some technical difficulties. But these are exciting times in our business. And as you said, moments like these are always the precursor to incredible opportunity. And I too want to commend Brooke. You represent the next wave of mortgage executives, professionals. There's no question you're going to the moon. And there are just way too many people that fall into that category to name one other person, because then I'm going to leave so many people out. But you know who you are. Keep believing, because this is a business that can provide an incredible life while making an even bigger impact. And I think that's a perfect note to sign off on. Donna Chichevsky, thanks for producing. We'll have to do this again sometime. Appreciate you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. So long.
Thank you,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank
Bye.
you.